All right, welcome to my book club. I'm Dylan here with the last Bone Rider. Keith, what's up, buddy?
D-Man, my good man.
It's been a bloody damn long time.
Mm-hmm.
It really has. I feel like this is one of our longer hiatuses. You were on vacation. It's a long book. Things happen. But here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing 2018's Iron Gold by Pierce Brown, our boy. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out about past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com. Sign to our DMs on X or Instagram. That's Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. Actually, a lot of people listen on, I guess it's not iTunes, it's like Apple Podcasts. So I don't know why I always say iTunes, but whatever. Download, subscribe, 5-star review, please, and thank you. So Keith, our buddy Pierce Brown came out with the Red Rising trilogy in 2014, hammered them out one year after another, 2014, 2015, 2016. We initially fell in love with Red Rising, which is interesting because from what I understand, if you ask people to rank both series, like the two trilogies, they would put, and this is conjecture, so what do I know, but they would put either Red Rising or Iron Gold at the bottom, which means Iron Gold must be fire because we loved Red Rising.
Yeah, the first book.
Yeah, so he cranked those out back-to-back years, and then I guess he thought he was going to be done with the whole series, which is interesting because he left a lot of things open in Morningstar. But 2018, he decided to, follow up his trilogy with another trilogy, which takes place 10 years later. So the war's been going on for 10 years. I didn't think much of it when I heard that there was a second trilogy, potentially a money grab in my opinion, and I say that with no judgment at all to Pierce because you got to squeeze that IP for all it's worth. I respect it. I mean, you don't have to go like George Lucas level, but one level below that is totally fine for me. But you had heard that these were good books and we're in kind of this summer beach read season, and even though they're long, I still feel like they fit the beach read for the sci-fi fantasy group. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think we're getting into more of an adult sci-fi now. Like the first ones, I think you could get away with saying they're YA. I didn't think they were at the time, but these are like, now we're getting a lot more characters. We're getting the Rim, we're getting Mars, we're getting Venus, we're getting every planet out there. You have to remember a lot of characters, so it's a little different. It's a little more grown up Red Rising for the kids.
Yeah, and you like everything involving rimming, right?
Right, I'm a big rim guy. I stick around the rim. Not just in basketball and in other things, you know what I mean?
In your personal life. That trip to Italy, things, a different way of loving is rubbed off on you. So with that, we can just jump right into stock up, stock down. Keith, what do you ever stock up?
Stock up Harvey Dent. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. No true words have ever been spoken about my boy Darrow. It was a tough book for Darrow. We come in and you think he's a family man now. He's at home and he's trying to help set up this new society. Like, nope, he's been at war for 10 years, barely sees his kids, his wife. He's kind of going against the Republic for all of which it stands. A
little America in there?
Yeah. When we get to him, then he's like, I did all this stuff for the Republic to win the war, and they're like, fuck you. And he's instead of being like, all right, whatever, like you don't need me then. Like I'm the dude that brought you this. You don't need me. We'll see what happens then. And waiting for them to like come to him groveling and be like, all right, we were wrong. He's like, no, I'm right, and then kind of instead of like saying screw you, he kind of is like screw you, but I'm gonna also go do my own thing again. He kills Wolfgar, which was like one of his buddies, and to escape, which I didn't care for either. You don't pull your razor out unless you want to kill someone. He's like, I didn't mean to. It's like, well then don't pull the razor out. And then the biggest thing really is that makes me question everything is that Severo, his right hand man, his ride or die. Been there since day one. Once he starts disagreeing with you, you're fucking up. You know what I mean? Like that's like the pulse check. He should really be checking in with him more, being like, "Yo, am I doing the right thing?" Because Severo is the guy that will almost always be like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. You know what you're doing. You're not doing."
Severo's going to tell you how it is.
Yeah, and then when he starts saying you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then we got issues. So I just think it was a tough book for Darrow, and I'm hoping the next two books we see the old Darrow.
Yeah, but I think, and this is probably the biggest thing for me in this book, so I'm glad you brought it up first. Also, you ruined one of my stock downs, which was Ride or Die Guy stock down, because Darrow doesn't give a shit about Severo anymore. Like, well, and Severo just leaves him, which I feel like Severo would have, in my mind, Severo would have had a little bit more of a blowout before leaving him in previous books. But time has changed. People change. You ended that very well said stock up with, I hope we see more of the old Darrow going forward. But that might be the problem, is it seems like Darrow hasn't really changed. And the old Darrow was what they needed for this revolution. But now that there's a government in place and the Vox Populi, which is important, that's the voice of the people, you have these things in place so that everyone is represented. But Darrow wants to be the commander-in-chief during wartime. He wants to be able to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, how he sees fit. But you've built a bureaucracy now. You've built a bureaucracy that's not just gold. The bureaucracy is all colors. And with this big bureaucracy that's a solar system wide, things don't move as fast as Darrow wants. And when things don't move in his favor, he, instead of just saying, okay, that's the way it is, he pushes back. And that's why eventually an arrest warrant comes out for him. So I'm wondering if this is the Darrow of old is still the Darrow of today, and that's not the right Darrow for the situation. Because, when we had the first trilogy, Darrow was almost like Maximus from Gladiator, and that's probably how it should have ended for him, in death in the final duel kind of situation. But we just all assumed that he would do what Maximus was striving for, I guess, if his wife didn't get raped and murdered in front of her child's eyes, who then also got murdered and who knows what else. But he would do what Maximus would want to do and just go and see his wife and child and be happy and ride off into the sunset, into Elysium, if you will. But that's not with the Darrow that we have. And I was kind of wondering, it was also, one of my lingering questions is, what is going to become of Darrow in the rest of this trilogy? Because this was definitely a setup book, that's for sure. And I'm wondering if Darrow is like the Anakin Skywalker of this story. Is he not going to be willing to move off of whatever cause he sees or the way he sees this playing out? And I'm not saying he's not going to go full Vader vibe, but he's already showing that he's not going to listen to the government, which is a government that he helped put in place.
I think I would agree with you if the book ended and he was like, I was right all along, these idiots. But he does end the book and he's like remorseful, which when I said the old Darrow, that's what I mean. Like, the thing that sticks out to me about the old Darrow was the guy that says hand up, and then he's like, someone in my unit made a mistake, I'll take a beating for them. That's the type of person I am. Like, he'll take a beating, but I'm taking a beating also because I'm the leader. He hasn't really done that here. Like, he hasn't really done the hand up. At the end of the book, he started being like, I fucked all this up. That's on me. Which I wish he came to that sooner. The other thing I didn't really like was the whole Hail Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
The last person I remember that used the Hail thing wasn't great. So I was like, can we use a different slogan? I'm guessing that's like a Roman Empire thing. I don't know. But
yeah, Hail Caesar.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right. That's what, I didn't realize that. I was like, Hail Reaper? What the fuck?
Sig Heil Reaper? What? Yeah, I'm interested to see how it plays out, because he went rogue and obviously is going for his own, what he wants to do. But that's the problem with, and that's what's interesting about this book and many books that Pierce Brown has done, like the other trilogies too, is that everyone has perspectives and everyone's perspectives are different. So what he sees is the right way to do it. He's not an evil person by any means, and he's not doing it in evil ways. And I think that's an interesting thing about stories in general, is the way that people feel like they're doing the right thing, but either they're going about it the wrong way, or it's like just definitely not the right thing. But speaking of perspective, that is my first stock up, is perspective. We have a whole kind of paradigm shift, I guess, in the way that Pierce Brown's approaching this, not only this novel, but presumably the entire series. We've only read Iron Gold, but he's going from multiple point of views. He's got, as opposed to just Darrow's point of view. So this one, he's got 4. It's Darrow, Lysander, Lyria, and Ephraim. Those are the 4. I guess before I get into my feels, I'll put you on the spot. How did you feel about it going from just Darrow's first person perspective to like these 4?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good move, because the reason that Darrow's story is so good is because he goes from lower class to upper class. Basically, when we go through his initial 3 books, we're seeing everything as he sees it. Now he's like the head of things, so there's not a lot more perspective he can give other than like, this is a battle. So now we're getting perspective of like a Red, and now we're getting someone that's like an Ephraim, like a kind of a con artist / person that's been disillusioned by all this stuff that's going on. And
he was like an insurance adjuster. Like that was his job.
Yeah, I do think it's a really smart move to get more perspectives and see like the whole world open up again.
Yeah, I liked it as well. In some ways, we've already done the Darrow story. Like, I don't need more Darrow growth. That seems somewhat repetitive, and he's already changed so much that I'm fine with having more Darrow, of course, but I don't want it to be the only voice that's happening and also the only perspective. And I think that's the point here, and that's what's interesting. The scope is getting bigger, it seems like, in this trilogy. Obviously, the last ones we had, it was pretty much Mars. There was some Luna, and then a little bit of the Rim. Him going to the Rim for like a hot minute. But now there's Mercury, there's Venus, there's Mars, there's Luna. Everything's going on, and the themes as well as the scope is expanding, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So having these different perspectives of people who now we have the aftermath of what happened from Morningstar. It's been 10 years of war, and we have these perspectives, like you said, of different people at different societal levels that are all somewhat intertwined. I liked the way they intertwined Ephraim and Lyria, because at the beginning I didn't like jumping around so much. I was just trying to find my way back into the story, and I didn't necessarily love jumping from one thing to another because I wasn't sure how they all tied together. But I did like how they tied Ephraim and Lyria together. And then, I mean, Lysander is going to play a big part in this story. He has to, right? I'm wondering if, like, Lysander is going to be the next Darrow of this trilogy, because he has a very unique perspective, and he seems like he's somewhat set in his ways or his idea of what the right way to have the society is, with gold at the top, and to him that was order. And I see that, if you've been at war, if Darrow promised this, this uprising that was gonna stop, pretty much stop wars and create peace, and now it's been 10 years of war. Lysander, he idolized Darrow at the beginning, or in the last trilogy. He was like, oh, Darrow's the biggest badass in the whole place. And then finding out he's a Red, whatever the case is, obviously not super happy when he like murders his grandmother and whatnot. But I think he's going to have a really interesting storyline. I mean, it already started out pretty interesting. So kind of having all those perspectives, I really liked.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you have anything else for Stock Up?
The weight of things, stock up.
Is that a song by Tool or something?
No, I'm just saying like the impact of things. The weight of things is more because I'm not talking about Italy, even though the weight of things are up. Let's put it that way. From Italy.
All that pizza and pasta.
Oh yeah, and trust me, I didn't shit for the whole trip. Not once. I came back and I was like, I may explode.
It was like
it's all cheese. You're just all eating cheese the whole time. I'm like, and I look up what you're supposed to do in order to like. It's like, oh yeah, this is pretty common. So what you should do is walk a lot. I walk more than I've ever walked my entire life. Yeah. I was like, I sit at my computer all day and I'm perfectly regular. I go out there, I'm walking every single day. I drink more water than I've ever drank. It's like, yeah, and then do all these. I'm like doing every single thing. It's like drink coffee. I drink more coffee than I've ever drank. It's like, yeah, it's crazy.
I did the whole Italy trip. We went all over Europe when I was in my early 20s with a couple of friends, and this is your early 20s, so we're staying in hostels. We're doing it on the cheap, as cheap as we possibly can.
Not ideal.
And we started in Italy. We went like Rome, Florence, We did the same thing you did. You went Rome, Florence, and Venice, right? Yeah, so we did the same thing. I didn't shit in Italy. I didn't shit until we got to Switzerland. like it was like a solid 9 days.
Yeah,
and I thought I was like, something's gonna happen, right? Like it just pierces through your intestines or like comes out your mouth.
I think you start sweating it out or something. Idea. I don't know. It's weird. So.
But yeah, so I had a very similar experience.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when that first one comes, oh my god. So yeah, you
anyway,
the weight of things.
Yeah, but these books, what I just remember when the books come to an end, there's always this huge like, oh, this is just the beginning type feeling. I don't know if you recall the end of the second book, especially where he gets captured and he's like, everything's over, and I was like, oh my god, like you like have this sense of dread. Yeah. But like the books never end, and you're like, oh, all right, like maybe I'll read the next. They end, and you're like, oh shit, like the whole world is at stake at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So he does a really, really good job of that. You feel like you just went on this long, long swim with him to get through this, and you're like, everything's a battle, everything's tough. You get to the end, and you're like, oh, I'm in a triathlon. Like we just started the race. Like this is not even, you know what I mean? That's what it feels like when we get to the end.
I thought you were going to say we have to swim back, which is like a little Gattaca reference. I don't know if you're a Gattaca fan, but that's a great stuff.
I just remember him combing his hair, really.
Oh yeah, sloughing off his skin.
Yeah.
No, the whole point of him and his brother, they used to do swim battles, and he would always beat his brother, even though his brother was like a peak human being.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "How did you always beat me?" On the swims. He's like, "You have to save some for the way back," and he's like, "I never saved anything for the way back." He was just fully committed.
I love that.
Yeah, Gattaca's a great film, but people haven't seen it. I guess I spoiled some of it right there, but
we watched that in biology class. That was the best day I had in that class.
I love those high school classes where they're like, "All right, put this on." Like I took a photo class, and they were like, "Today we're gonna watch Blade Runner." I was like, "Yes, please." I don't know. I get it's beautifully shot, but I just
don't ask
Blade
questions.
Runner.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
I'd be a great teacher in high school. I'd just be watching movies all the time.
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Oh, we're studying ancient Rome. Gladiator. That's coming up." Yeah, I guess I felt a little differently at the end. I was more of... It felt like to me it just ended. Like it was someone just stopping in the middle of a sentence kind of thing.
Well, he broke a guy out of jail that he didn't want to break out of jail. He did this huge operation to get to... Was it Venus?
Yeah, he went to Venus to get...
He's gone through all this whole process, all with the end goal, ends just by the means. Like, that's his whole mindset. Hey, listen, I'm doing all these shitty things, but you know what? It will be worth it because I'll end the war when I go in here. He breaks in, and the guy's just sitting there, and he's like, this guy's not even been running this. So he basically just did all of this shit. And then Severo's like, and I'm out. So he loses his best friend. He the Republic's falling. His kids are kidnapped. Like everything just comes crashing down in front of him. And he's like, oh, I've made a huge mistake. And you're like, oh shit. And then you realize it's just beginning. So.
Yeah, the Ash Lord is legitimately Ash at this point.
Yeah.
And he's almost like the guy from Seven who they wake up in bed. Like he's pretty much that guy, and which is because of like Apollonia somehow was able to poison him from jail or something. I don't know. I didn't 100% follow that. But you also know the Ash Lord's daughter is a super badass herself, and she's running a lot of this. Like she's running a lot of this space battle stuff. So like you have to get her too. It'd be like killing Hitler, but you still got like Himmler and Goebbels and whoever that other shitty Air Force guy was. Like you still got those guys out there who are still running the show.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's good, but you still got these other people who are doing it. So you knew it for that. I mean, at least in my mind, I was like, okay, this isn't going to be the end of it, obviously. I mean, we have a trilogy, so of course it's not. And then I guess Lyria got captured or something at the end, right?
She's either captured or dead. We don't know.
Ephraim is doing his thing.
He might be dead.
And Lysander is now like going back to the...
It's weird you like Lysander.
planets.
I was like, he's kind of a baby back bitch. I don't really like him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He doesn't fight for himself. He's like high class knob that pretends he's about certain morals, but he doesn't have any morals. He's backstabbing. He's like, oh, I'll let Cassius die. Like, that's what he wants. That's what he wants. And then like his girl starts fighting her, and he's like, no, the girl I just met, I don't want them to fight. I'm like, that's going to be your breaking point? Like, Yeah, he's a
Yeah, I
bitch.
mean,
I don't like
he
him.
he definitely, is using his gold piece like a wand. That's for sure. He's letting that thing. What are those like water sticks that you use to like find water in the
Pardon me.
desert?
What? I don't know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
there's like these. They're like
Uh,
it's like a witchcrafty type thing. You get like a stick and you hold it in front of you and it finds
oh,
water. That's pretty
I
much
know
what he's
about
doing with
sticks
his
that you put in
penis.
front of you.
But yeah, he's got his heart on for Serafina, and I did think the Cassius death was Lysander was pretty chill about the whole thing.
Yeah, I actually thought that was kind of cool because it was kind of like a Departed exit where they're like, "Oh, he's obviously gonna be fine," like and they're like, "No, he's dead." I was like, "Oh, wait, what?
But are we? I mean, that was another lingering question of
Oh,
mine.
could he be
Are we
alive?"
sure?
Yeah.
There's no. They said he died of exsanguination, which is I think blood loss. If my Latin comes back to me, maybe it's Greek. I don't know, but I think it's just blood. Like he died of blood loss from the battle, and they
Hmm.
just told him that.
Yeah, I guess
It's
they
not like,
didn't
okay.
see
Let
the
me see the
body.
body.
Yeah, there
I
wasn't
need to see
proof.
the body. So that was one of my lingering questions. Like, is Cassius coming back? But yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's why I wanted to. For our next episode, we're jumping right into what is it? Dark Ages. Is that
Yeah,
the name of the second
yeah,
book? Yeah, we're jumping right into that because I felt like it was it didn't leave me like, oh, I need to read this next book, but it left me feeling like I need a continuation. Like I
yeah,
need to just keep going because I didn't get anything answer wise,
yeah.
which I understand. I'm not mad about it. My last stock up was Half Baked, the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the specifically the Who's Coming With Me, because like that's pretty much the move that Darrow pulls after he learns there's an arrest warrant coming down for him. It's he's the leader. Everyone expects that he's for the Republic and this, that, and the other thing. All of his people. Next thing you know, the Republic's got an arrest warrant. He's like, all right, guys, so they're coming for me, and I'm gonna just go for the Ash Lord, even though we were trying to get an entire armada to go after him and they said no. So I'm going to need all you guys to come with me and probably do this suicide mission. You guys down? People are like,
Whose car we taking? To be fair, a lot of them were like, "We're overthrowing the government," I assume, right? And he's like, "Nah, we're good. We're good." That because he could have done
Yeah.
that. He could have gone
Yeah.
back to Mars and been like, "All right, let's ride," and they would have overthrown the government. So he could have.
Yeah, they're sticking true, which I like about Pierce Brown, to this Roman love. This idea of ancient Rome as the pinnacle of societies or whatnot, because that's exactly what a Roman general would do. They'd be like, oh, the Senate says you're out. Well, I have this army, so let me just bring my army into Rome and I'll walk it up to the Senate and say, are you sure? You sure? How about them apples? Yeah, so I thought it was kind of funny that he was just like, yeah, who's going to come on this suicide mission with me? It's like, what, boss? What do you have for stock down?
Talk down being in a female's head. I will say we get introduced. We have the first female character introduced that we're in her head in this book, Lyra. I think there is a lot of great women characters in this. Great leaders, great fighters. We got Mustang, we got Victra, Darrow's mom. Just name a few. There's a bunch of them. But Lyra, I don't know if it was the narrator or what it was, but it seemed like she was just like the narrator's like voice made it sound like she was crying every single thing she was saying. She's like, then I walked over to like the grocery store, and she's like, and then I walked over to the like that's how she was like saying each line, and I was like, what? So it just made it sound like this character is whining the whole time. Where when you think of like Darrow's narrator voice, and again we did an audiobook, so might be read differently for different people. But even when he's upset or sad, you can hear the anger in his voice. He's like, and then I pulled my father's legs down, and then you can like see it building, like where you're like, yes, let's go. Whereas this is kind of goes back to the typical like YA like complaining person. I didn't love that. I also thought that her role in the book, she plays a kind of a pivotal role, but she's just along for the ride. Nothing she does is she's not doing anything herself. The only thing she really did, yeah, but the only thing she really did was pull out what's his name from the water. Other than that, every single other decision that's made is just basically her going along for the ride and Yeah, like which is like complete opposite of Darrow, where Darrow is like, oh, those are the rules. Great, I'm rewriting the rules. I'll do whatever the fuck I want to do to make this thing happen. Where she's like, I'm just gonna go along and see what happens. Like that's kind of what seems to be the difference between the two characters. So wasn't a big fan of hers. Not great being in the first female's head in this book series.
Yeah, I'm not. I think I'm gonna kind of blame Aiden Maloney. I think is her name. I think that's how you pronounce it, Aiden. Because one, to some degree, you're right. I don't think you're wrong that she didn't do a ton. She does escape from the syndicate, like the guy who's trying to kill her, which is probably, I would have probably just curled up and died. I'm not jumping through air shaft or something like that. I'd be out. I'd just be like, all right, kill me. That's fine. And I think that our boy Gerard Reynolds, who does Darrow, is just the best. Like, he's really, really good. Yeah. He's not, you know what I mean? He's in the top tier of audiobook narrators that I've heard. I think he really does that justice to that character, where there were some other ones that might not have. And that's sometimes the problem when you get an ensemble cast for these, is that you can like one and not like the other, and that's kind of the way it goes. And they're obviously going to take some artistic liberties, as they should, with how they voice their character. But Lyria is also, I think this is going to be part of her storyline, because she had some serious trauma in her like Gamma Red camp as the Red Hand, or whoever the like militant group is that's coming in, and like the Reds that are going and like killing Gammas or whatnot for past grievances, which makes a lot of sense. But she's had some trauma with all these people dying around her, and she's responsible for her nephew. Like I said, her whole family's pretty much dead, and then she's pulled off a planet. Like, she is the fish out of water in this story. So the idea of her not being bold and aggressive off the bat makes a lot of sense. I think that down the line something will happen, but she stands up to Ephraim. I mean, when Mustang is, pretty much threatening to torture her or whatnot, or the people around her are, she stands up to them and, tells her story and like tells the truth, and but at the same time isn't like meek and just kill me, whatever the case is. So I like the character. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to blame that.
Well, yeah, I would have liked her better if we got the perspective of like a terrorist or something. She became a terrorist. Like, even though that would make her a bad person, it would be interesting to see how someone that is a Red goes from being a Red to terrorist. I also wanted to get more on the Red Hand. I didn't want to understand how you're getting like absolutely dominated by a group of people. When you finally decide to fight back, it's now against the same people that are the same same issues that you were experiencing. It doesn't make any sense to me, right? It'd be like British oppressors coming in and then you never fighting them. I guess this does happen in a lot of countries, though. Never mind. Anyways.
Yeah, you rehash old grievances. So if there are like multiple tribes within a country that Britain has been ruling, and then Britain steps out of there, then those tribes are going to be like, well, you guys were friends with the British when they were here, so we're going to kill all of you.
I guess that does make sense. All right. Good talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that the Reds would want to band together and fight the Greys, the people that were like holding them down the whole time. So it's annoying to me that they're like, now we're gonna fight now that we're freed. It's like, huh?
Yeah, now we're gonna fight other Reds because you guys were the Gammas and you guys always won the laurels and you were helping out.
But that was the whole point. Like, do they not see that?
I know, but no, they don't. You know what I mean? And also when there's a giant war going on, it's hard to, like, when a new society is created, it can be bedlam, and that's kind of what's going on.
That was the real problem with Darrow. He should have spent more of his... It'd be like George Washington beating the British and being like, well, we got to go establish democracy everywhere now. And like leaving the U.S. like in the infancy stages. Like, no, you got to develop... And also 10 years, I like how Lysander's like, 10 years is too long. To overthrow an established government, that's going to take 50 years at minimum. Like, that's just... Like, the U.S. really wasn't a good country until... I don't know when we've ever been a good country. But you know what I mean? Like, we really...
There was a period.
Yeah, but... The Civil War happened, 100 years after or 75 years after? Like, things were still not established very well. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the 10-year barrier for a successful society is pretty crazy from Lysander.
Yeah, and it's an interesting perspective, this idea of this, like, what would George Washington do if and we're just using George. I know you're not saying like George Washington did all these things. We're not. Who knows? But we're not that good at American history. But the interesting thought there is that, yeah, he's not going to go to all these other countries and say we have to do democracy here. But what if all those other countries were in your backyard? Because we couldn't do anything. We're a giant nation on the other side of the globe from, England and these other places. But in this world where it's a solar system that you can get from one place to another so quickly, it's like, hey, there are enemies. Enemies are always at the gate, because they can just show up in their spaceships, and you have this, the Ashlers just giving them the runaround. So that's why Darrow thinks that, like, oh, I just got to finish this thing so then I can turn around and we can then start figuring out how to govern the society. But unfortunately, as you're trying to finish this thing, one, it's dragging on, and two, the society still has to run. So
yeah,
you're putting,
clean up your own house before you start going fixing other people's houses, is what I would say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, stock down. Yeah, I got it. No, like it. It's interesting what you brought up about the narrators, because my only other stock down after you burned my ride or die guy was the unfreezing process. Stock down.
Never a stock down.
Well, because due to the unfreezing process, I cannot control the volume of my voice, which is how I felt about the narrators in this. Lysander's narrator is so quiet compared to Tim Gerard Reynolds, who does Darrow, that I would be listening to this on my audiobook and I'd have like a Lysander chapter going and it'd be on blast, and then all of a sudden it would switch to a different narrator and it would like blow my eardrums out. So and then Lyria, like you said, was like pretty quiet and meek. So it was every different.
Yeah, everyone was different.
It seems like they didn't produce it well or something, that the levels were all off. So I found myself just like
I only
volume
noticed
up,
that
volume
in
down.
the car. So when I listened to it just on my phone, it was fine. I didn't notice it. But in the car, I had the volume up to like 30 on my car thing, which is super high. I'm like, and then they'd talk and it'd be like an action scene, and I'd be like, oh my god, my ears, Jesus.
Yeah, it was the same for me. Like I'm listening to it on CarPlay. I got a new car. I'm like, oh, loving it. Driving around. It's been beautiful out. If I put the window down even like a crack, I couldn't hear it unless I was going max volume.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful out. I want to have the windows down. So I was like, I'm gonna blow these speakers out just trying to hear what Lysander has to say. Yeah. So that was my finish, was they need you to engineer the next one. Well, I guess they're already all out. Maybe they need to.
I mean, people probably listen to this and are like, you've maybe the worst audio engineering I've ever heard.
Well, my guy Dan Carlin, who I love, absolutely love. I've been listening to a lot of hardcore history lately and common sense. I just love Dan Carlin. But all of his comments is people like, you need a better sound engineer. You need a better sound engineer. Because he gets so excited when he reads quotes that he just like goes up 10 octaves in a quote, and people get really upset about that. So if it works for him, it'll work for us.
Yeah.
I ain't mad about it. What else do you have for Stuck Down?
Last one, big reveals before you die, Stuck Down. I think Game of Thrones really did this best when Lady Olenna, is that her name? Reveals that she poisoned Joffrey, and she's like, tell her I did it, type the ending thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. And she's just about to die when she does it. And this one, we meet the Ash Lord, and he's like, by the way, you guys are all slaves. You'll always be slaves to me. And I kidnapped your kids. And they're like, what the fuck? And he just sits there and he's like, oh, shit. And they just burn him alive. I'm like, maybe wait until you're about to die before you reveal all this stuff. It was not like the smartest plan. You know what I mean? Or just die with the secrets. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. That was one of the reasons why I thought Darrow was going to go like hard in the paint of being a bad guy, because Apollonius or whatever gives him the look as he's about to burn him alive, and Darrow does the head nod like, yeah, let's do this thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was like another thing. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I know Darrow's a little fucked in the head, and that's one of the things we love about him. But yeah, burning people alive, just like not super cool.
To your point, it was serendipitous, you know? Live by the ash, die by the ash, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, shouldn't have been called the Ash Lord. Yeah. Should have been called the, like, die peacefully in my sleep Lord. What was your favorite part of the book or your favorite storyline? And I also want my rankings now.
Yeah, I would say Ephraim, number one for me. I thought he was a really interesting character. We also haven't got a ton of relationship stuff outside of Darrow and his wife from the first book. So it was an interesting take on that.
Like him and Trig, you're saying?
Yeah, and like how like oh like yeah, I guess I could see how he hated Darrow and anyone that like was kind of around that.
Well, because Ephraim was in the Rising and participated in the Rising, and obviously saw some messed up stuff and participated in some messed up stuff, and got out of the Rising, became a insurance adjuster or whatever, and now he does heists or whatever the case is. He's kind of a man for hire, if you will. I will agree with you. I mean, I'm not going to agree with you that his is the best storyline, but I thought his was my number 2 because, one, there was like cool stuff going on. Like he was doing cool stuff, and he's an interesting character, but also just he's so broken. He's just such a broken human being. Like he's a good person inside, and you can tell that he's such a good person, but he does all of these things that they're not like necessarily bad things, but they're so self-destructive. Like he knows it's not going to turn out well for him. I mean, he even contemplated committing suicide at one point, so he knows these things aren't going to turn out for him. But then he finds Lyria, and he forms this bond with her that he did not expect, and maybe that's going to pull the humanity back out of him.
Well, he's the perfect lead in what's those like Sin City? What's that kind of movie called?
Noir?
Yeah, he's like perfect like noir guy, like where he's like hates everything, hates everyone, does the most shitty things, but at the end of the day, you're like, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a morally opaque human being who has like a good heart. He's a good guy that does bad things, except he's not walking around calling people like toots and slapping them across the face or something like that.
That's what you need to do as a noir?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You ever read The Maltese Falcon? You ever read that book? It's a great book, and it's a classic, but it's just funny for that time period where if there's a woman that's like talking, having an opinion, it's like you just slap her around and you say, get a grip of yourself, woman. It's like, what? So Ephraim was your number 1. What's your number 2?
Darrow, I think, is number 2. Lysander, I'm guessing is near your number 1, but I thought he was interesting, his story, but at the same time, he's a baby back bitch. I already said that, and that Lyra's 4. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Lysander's my number 1. It's not necessarily because of Lysander. I think the Rim storyline was the most interesting story. That was very Game of Thronesian to me, with this inner fighting between husband and wife, and for a power struggle that eventually leads to the husband having to get sentenced to death, but does this crazy walk into the out in the wild or whatever the case is, and she doesn't want him to die, but that's just the way it goes when the government gets involved. And so Lysander's a witness to all of this. So it's interesting because it's his perspective, but of these other customs and this whole unfolding storyline of what's going on the Rim. So that's why I liked the Lysander storyline the most. I just thought that was the most interesting from that perspective. And then Ephraim, and then Darrow, which I'll get into probably in my hates, and then Lyria. So
okay,
that was my 4. Did you have like a specific part of the book or that you enjoyed?
The necklace blowing up in the ship I thought was pretty cool, because they don't tell you what the heist is going to be, what it's around, so you're kind of just like, hey, what's happening? So I thought that was probably the best scene.
Yeah, that was cool. I think probably for me was the Cassius duel, because I was like, how is this going to work? He does that first duel and he wins, and you're immediately like, okay, Cassius is going to win. They're going to free him, and he's somehow going to get involved in this. And then she sends like her next nephew down, and then once again you realize, oh, there's politics here, because now as he's killing all these people, now they're like all those people are turning on Cassius even more, and then aligning themselves with the queen or whatever on the Rim, so Dido or whatever her name was. So that was interesting. And then also just like, I love a good duel, and he has like 5 of them in a row, so that was kind of cool, as well as the first Lysander when they find the ship, that like almost alien-esque interaction where they find the broken down ship and it's full of obsidians and they have to like fight their way out. They get Seraphina, but they have to like leave the rest of the other people. It's like, sorry, not sorry. I thought that was a good part too. What about characters? We have a bunch of new ones, obviously, like you said at the top. Ephraim, Lyria, Tongueless, the Ash Lord we actually like meet, Volga, Ephraim's number 2. the Duke of Hands, who's the syndicate guy, Seraphina, Diomedes, Apollonius, Rona, who we haven't even talked about, who's Darrow's niece, who is 1,000,000% going to die. Never thought that was not going to happen. Yeah. It's like, I promised your dad I wouldn't let you die. It's like, okay, so she's dead. There's some other ones I missed. Were any of those your favorite characters, or just like the big
I think
four?
I said at the top, I had a tough time following all the characters because they're all Greek or Roman names, and they're all like Ao Ra and Ra, and Ao whatever stuff. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. So, I mean, I'll stick with Ephraim for that, and then as like a side person, I did like Tongueless. I thought that was a nice character. So
I like Tongueless too. I like Tongueless. Speaking about, I guess we just like Obsidians because I was a big fan of Volga.
Yeah, Volga's great too.
Ephraim's number 2. She knows him. She knows what he's like trying to do. She also knows that he's like a good guy. She's almost like the angel on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And so I liked her a lot. I'm intrigued by Apollonius and Diomedes. I'm intrigued by them because Apollonius is, what's that guy's name from the last one, who was Darrow's friend but was also like a little messed up in the head. And Lorna Arcos ended up killing him like in the basement before he could kill the younglings. Titus or something like that. Whatever. It's his like older brother is who Apollonius is. So, and he seems like an absolute psychopath. So I'm intrigued to see what happens there. And Diomedes is like the super badass, the best fighter from the Rim. So I'm intrigued to see what happens with him as well. So. Yeah, but yeah, I agree. There's a lot of characters. It was hard for me to follow.
That's why they need to make this a TV show. We can start to see the people here. Game of Thrones it.
Yeah, combine some of these characters into one because I'm too dumb to follow all of them. What about love hate? Let's get into that. What'd you love about Iron Gold?
I just like being back in the world again. I think I liked it more than you did, but I think it is a masterpiece. It's literally like every time.
Really?
Not this book specifically. I just think the world he's built.
Yeah.
I mean, like just the whole concept of like we like learned about like hell divers, and that was like where I thought the book was going to be about. It was going to be a mining book. Like that's what it started on. And now we're in the Rim, and we're learning about new, like the society norms in the Rim. They don't have mirrors in the Rim. You could make a whole book on just the Rim. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's like that's just a small part of the book of the 4th book, which I don't know. It just seems to keep on opening up and keeps on getting bigger and bigger. And you just don't, not for one second am I like not thinking this is a real world. The whole time I'm in it. I'm just like, oh yeah. Like obviously they're in the Rim now. Like yeah, it makes sense where they are. And they're in different places, different characters. So I just think it's super, super well written and well thought out, and yeah, I just really like it.
Have you seen those digital images that people make online? I feel like I see them on Reddit here and there, where it's like a very simple picture of something digitally created, and then you zoom in on it, and
and it's like
a little
things.
Keyhole,
Yeah.
And like in that keyhole is like another story, and then or like another picture, and you like keep zooming in on one thing, and that's how I feel like he's created with this universe. Is that you think you kind of have everything under wraps, and then it's not like he shows you something new. It's just like something that was referenced before he zooms in on, and you realize, oh my God, there's so much life here too.
Yeah.
And then you go somewhere else and you zoom in on that, and it's like, oh my God, there's so much here too. Like it was all there. I agree with you. It's very well done. My love, and it's kind of related to that, I guess, is with this book we get a little of it all. There's heists. There's kidnapping, there's a rescue mission, there's covert assassination ops, there's prison break, there's space battles, there's, diplomacy happening in multiple different places. There's a ton going on in this book compared to Dark Age, which when I started, I was like, this book's 33 hours long. Holy shit. But the Iron Gold isn't that long. It's like 20 hours. So...
Yeah, and it feels like it's much shorter than that. It felt
it definitely did. Yeah.
So
when I finished it, I was like, I can't believe I finished this. That flew by. So yeah, if you like any of that stuff, you really get all of it. So there's duels like I talked about. It's like there's a little bit for everybody, and it's like one of those ice cream parlors that you go to that has the belly buster is what we used to have at Chadwick's, RIP that place. But you go there and had like 27 scoops in one bowl. Like, yeah, it might be a lot, but you're going to enjoy it for at least the first half hour until you're all bound up the next day like Keith. What else? What else, Jill?
I don't remember what scene this was. I think it was when they get captured, but the exploding handcuffs, like the movie Swordfish, if they run away from them, the handcuffs explode, blow their arms off. I like that. I like the all. I already mentioned too all the rim stuff, like the returning to dust. It was kind of like very Silo-esque almost. Their whole society, which is kind of funny.
It's interesting how they're like so advanced, and they're golds obviously, and so they have all the technology and whatnot. But they're living on rations. Like the whole family is, even the head of the golds. They're like, all right, we only eat meat once a week. It's like, what the? And when we eat meat, we have a small portion. It's like, oh, okay, good. Sounds terrible, but I feel like those are almost like the more badass fighters then. Like those are like the Spartans. But I guess we'll find out later on. My other love was, besides the multiple point of views, which I loved about this one, which we already talked about. My other love was the few homages we get in here. And I feel like Pierce did this in the other books to varying degrees of success, and sometimes they were over my head, but I did notice a few of them. He says, House Barca sends their regards. Severo says that, which is a Game of Thrones reference. For the Republic, which I'm pretty sure was a Star Wars reference. Like, it was tied in pretty well, but I'm pretty sure it was a Star Wars reference. They call Carl Sagan like a great philosopher from thousands of years ago or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay. Shout out to Carl Sagan. And then, of course, the prison warden, I think it's Apollonia, or one of them is talking about the prison warden's rug, and he says that rug really ties the room together, which is right out of Big Lebowski. Like, that was very clearly a Big Lebowski reference. There's no question about that one. So I like how he throws those in there. He's having fun. You can tell he's having a good time.
Yeah, I like it.
What about hates?
I think I said most of my hates. I think just the too many names and moving parts that got me a little bit. I think like hardcore fantasy people would be like, finally, this is what we need. Whereas me, I'm like still amateurish. I still need to be kind of spoon-fed a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way.
Didn't you read Game of Thrones though?
Well, Game of Thrones for me was so deep of an obsession that I was spending time on the internet in between reading, like looking up the houses. It was like I was doing side learning. So if they had that, or if I was that interested in this, or I didn't have bats and ants and a baby, I might be interested in finding these things. There is a wiki,
but I'm always nervous to look at the wiki, especially like if this is the last book, or like there's no new books out yet, and I go to the wiki and do a research. But I'm nervous to click on someone's name. They're like, yeah, and of course he dies in book 5. Be like, God damn it! So I don't want to.
Like for Dungeon Crawler Carl, I like needed the wiki because there's like, it's almost like Magic the Gathering or something like that. Or Dungeons and Dragons, where who these characters are, what their skills are, all that stuff I needed to know. This one, I didn't want to dive into the wiki either. But, my only hate is the same as yours, really. It's that, well, one, I feel like I don't know Darrow's crew anymore. He had the Howlers. I knew all the Howlers in the first 3 books. When a Howler died, I'm pulling my wolf cloak up tight. I'm feeling sad. And this time I'm like, I don't really know. He has like Thessalonia or someone. Alexander, who is Lornau Argos's grandson. Like, I get that, but I'm not attached to him at all. Like, the only one was Severo. There's Pebble and Clown are in there, and they're married now, which is like, okay, cool, but they're not really a part of it. Those were our ride or die, was, the wolf cloaks. And now I don't really know them, so I don't know who's surrounding Darrow that's helpful, So that's a problem. And then I think it's also, I think I'm just not good at visualization or something, because it was hard for me to visualize some of the stuff that was going on, whether it be Darrow's having this battle to get to the Ash Lord's place or whatever the case was. And I just couldn't really see it in my head. There was like, Severo set off a nuke and they're doing this fighting and they're in star shells, but they're fighting a ton of golds. I honestly just couldn't visualize it, which took me, I feel like I wasn't getting the most out of it that I could be. And it's almost 99% my fault. I'm not going to blame this on Pierce Brown for like not being good at explaining things, but it was just tough for me personally.
Yeah, I could see that. I was just picturing like a moat, and there was like a big thing. Is that right? Is that what it was? Like an island
I have
moat?
no idea.
Okay.
You're asking the wrong person.
Well, that's what I was like, all right, so I'll just make up what other things going on.
I saw in my head, I saw like the Space Needle, like the Seattle Space Needle, and he was at the top, and they were on like, a desolate ground, and they were fighting there, but then there's like this Space Needle that they need to get to. And that could be so far off what was happening. It's like we're playing a game of telephone, and I was explaining this story to someone, and Pierce Brown's like, nope, that's not it at all. It's like I sat down at the French Laundry, which is a really good restaurant, and I had just had hot soup for breakfast. So I just couldn't taste anything, is how I felt. Like, I know it was good. Right. I just couldn't
You're a big
taste
hot
it.
soup for breakfast guy? Or I don't know. Why are you doing that?
Yeah, big soup for breakfast.
Well, you should have said oatmeal or something.
Yeah, oatmeal. Some super hot oatmeal.
Burn your tongue on bacon.
Well, that'll happen.
That's hard to do. It would be bacon grease, I guess. That would be the only way to do that.
Yeah. Well, I just drink bacon grease, of course.
Right. It helps with hangovers. So, yeah.
All right, Keith, what do you give it out of 5? Like, we're doing Goodreads style. What do you give it out of 5, and who's the book for?
Yeah, I think it's for fantasy people and people that like the first 3. I think so far I would say, yeah, I'd pick it up, but I'm also banking that the next 2 are going to be better. I give it a 4 out of 5. I think that's just because I like the world a lot. I think it's the 4th best book so far.
Mm-hmm.
So the other ones, I mean, Red Rising's a 5 for me, the first book. The other 2 are probably like 4.75s, like I think that's how high they are. So this one getting a 4 is probably a pretty big downgrade, but I still think I'd read 10 more of these books. It'd basically be like a Harry Potter book, like the book 2 or what's the one I didn't like, book 3 or book 5 maybe. Like I'd read those again 100% of the time. So no issues, but just wasn't the best of the series, I would say. How about you?
Yeah, and you couldn't read this series without reading the other trilogy, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah,
I don't think so.
There's too much going. You got introduced to way too many people.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, you don't really know the stakes. Like, you're not.
Right.
If you pick this up, you might think Darrow's a bad guy. Who knows? Yeah. So to who would read it? It has to be someone who's read the first 3 books. But which is unfortunate because it really limits the scope. But then go read the first 3 books. And what are you doing? What are you doing, people? Exactly. Go read the first 3 books. I give it a 3.75 because I feel like we have to do increments of 0.25, and it's more than a 3.5, but it's probably less than a 3.75, but I'm going 3.75. Okay. So that's our math.
That's disappointing. Yeah. Hopefully the next one gets back.
What do you mean disappointing? 3.75 is a great score.
All right.
3.75. That's probably the best score I've given out of, besides like All the Colors of the Dark this year. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you. I think it's probably the weakest out of the 4, but by no means does that mean it's bad. It's a 3.75. It's like I'm excited to be back here. I got some of my boys back, some new characters who I'm starting to enjoy, and a world that I've been excited to get back into. So yeah, I'm excited to read Dark Age, although I'm like, I don't know, an hour in, and I realize that I still have like 32 hours left.
Just don't look at the clock and just let it go.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, well, that was Iron Gold, and we're going to go quick and get Dark Age out the door next. But for those of you that have Spotify Premium, both of these books are available on Spotify Premium, so you don't have to buy them on Audible. So, that'll save you a credit, unless you're just racking up credits like Keith over there. That was Iron Gold, and we'll have Dark Age coming up soon.
Alrighty.
Good times, Keith.
Indeed.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye now.